everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be going over the Flesh and Blood TCG game on how to play for noobs, because I'm still a noob myself. So in this game, you have one of 22 heroes to choose from to go into battle with using different cards. With those heroes, you have weapons and you have equipment to use, along with your deck that you comprise of different cards. Right now, there are 3 different formats. There's the Ultimate Pit Fighter, which is a multiplayer commander-style format of Magic the Gathering. You've got the Classic Constructed, which is a longer formatted game, up to 80 cards, using adult heroes. And then you have your Blitz format, which uses 40 cards with inventory on the side and a young hero. And the way the heroes work, you've got a young version, which has 20 life, and an old version, which has 40 life. They have the same exact abilities, except for their life. So that'll determine what format you play in. We've also got Old Him, and there's the older version. And then Lexi in the young version, and the older version. So we're going to do a quick tutorial on how this is played. There are different types of cards. You have action cards, which determine what your action is. If it's a attack action, defense reaction, if it's a block or some sort, each card will tell you what type of card it is and how it's used. Each hero has a piece of weaponry that they can use, and it'll determine what weapon, by name on the bottom, who can use it. Rune Blade, which is a 2-handed weapon. A Guardian, which is the 1-handed weapon, so meaning that you can have an offhand for that character. Or something like Shiver, which is a Elemental Ranger weapon, 2-handed, meaning that your hero has to be an Elemental Ranger to be able to use it. Once you've chosen your hero and your opponent has chosen theirs, you reveal your heroes. At that time, that allows you to choose what equipment and weapons you want to use for that game. So we've already picked our weapon. We then pick our equipment, and right now I'm just using some generic stuff. And each hero has 4 pieces of equipment. They have their head slot, chest slot, arm slot, and leg slot. And each one of those cards has a different ability, whether it's got a defensive value or some sort of action it can do. Whether it's an instant, an action where you can destroy it to add something to your next attack. But each one plays a little different, and you can go through those cards and check it out. There are 4 stages. There's your start of turn. You have your action turn or attack turn. You have your end of turn, and then you have your draw phase. And each one of those has different things going for it. Now we're going to go over how the game is played in terms of resources. Unlike other games, it does not have mana or land or anything like that. Each card has a different value, depending on what card it is. We saw Overflex before, and this has a pitch value of 3, and it's a blue card. It also has a 1 cost to play. It has 2 defense, does not have any attack action, but it does have something it does its turn. So on your next arrow attack this turn, you gain a +2. It gains reload. If you have no cards in your arsenal, you may put a card into your arsenal face down, which would be underneath your hero as your arsenal field. And you would gain go again, meaning that you can get a second action point. You then have yellow cards, which have a pitch value of 2, and red cards, which have a pitch value of 1. Now the difference between the colors will come into play when you have different attack or defensive cards. As you can see on this Dazzling Crescendo, It's got an attack value of 2 for a blue card, 3 for a yellow card, and 4 for a red card. Blue cards were meant to be played as your pitch cards, where yellow cards were kind of an intermediate one, and your red cards were made to be your attack cards. So blue pitching, attacking with reds, and yellows if needed. Majority of your decks will have red cards in there with a mix of blues and maybe a few yellows here or there, depending on the strength of the card and what they do. When you build a deck, each colored card is unique to itself. So you can have 2 copies of a blue card, 2 copies of the red card, and 2 copies of the yellow card of the same one. That'll come into play as you're building your deck. With that, at the start of your turn, if you have any cards that have a effect that say at the start of your turn it goes into effect, or it ends at the beginning of your turn, those happen first. Once you get those resolved, your turn then starts. When you start your turn, you can choose to do an action, and doing an action causes you to use 1 point or action point. You get 1 action point per turn unless you have a card that says you can go again. If the card says go again, that gives you a second action point after your turn is done. At the end of your turn, any cards that you have in your hand, you can place 1 card face down in your arsenal. Anything that you play that turn would get discarded. Anything you pitch that turn would get put at the bottom of your deck in any order you want. After you've done that, you then redraw up to your hero's intellect. So in my case, it would be 4. You draw up to 4 cards. Turn goes around and around until the first person to drop to 0 life loses the game. Now, combat, the way combat works is at the start of your turn, again, you have 1 action point. You can play a card. So I look through my hand and I say, okay, I want to play Heaven's Claw. Okay, it costs 2 resources to use, and it's got an attack value of 4. I'm going to play Heaven's Claw. I'm going to pitch my blue Overflex into the pitch field. Because I use 2 to pitch it, I still have 1 left over. So we're going to keep that in mind for later. After I've done that, my opponent then gets a chance to block. They can block by pitching any card, or by using any card from their hand. So this one's got a block value of 3. And if they have any equipment they want to use to block, they can use that. So this has a block of 1. So they play those down. So they block my 4 with their 4. In that phase, you don't have to pay a pitch value. You can just play them from hand. Once it gets to the next step, which is step 3 of it, it's the reaction or attack reaction phase. At that point, if I had any cards in my hand that had the words attack reaction, I could then play those during that phase. So we're going to say that I had, say this card for some reason said attack reaction. I could then play that card. That would add another 2 damage. My opponent would then get a defensive reaction phase. During the defensive reaction phase, you can play any defensive reaction card you have in your arsenal, or you can play a card from your hand that said defensive reaction. But at that point, you would have to pay its pitch cost. So this one would cost 2. So my opponent would have to pay something that had a pitch value of 2 or more to play the card. But they would then play that, blocking for 4. So it would block everything from going through. Now at that point, if I had a card that had a go again action, I could then go again. So we'll say I did, and at this point, I'm going to play Dazzling Crescendo. It has no value to play, but it does 4 damage. So I would play that, and if my opponent could not block, they would then take 4 damage. Each time you finish one combat, it starts a new chain. So that's one chain. This would be a second chain. And if I was able to continue going and they didn't block, I could then go into, say, the last chain, and say I wanted to use my last pitch value of 1, I could do that, doing a third chain, playing that card, doing another 5 damage. Once everything is resolved, anything that you have pitched goes on, again, on the bottom of your deck in any order you want. Any cards that were played would then go into your graveyard. Your graveyard is the top of your deck. You have a banish zone below your deck. Once you're done with that, you then redraw. Both opponents redraw up to their maximum size, which would be 4. And it would go to your opponent, and then they would get a chance to go. Very simple, easy game to play once you learn the mechanics of it. Blitz is a great game, being that it's only a 15 to 20 minute game. Goes by pretty quickly. If you have any questions, please comment down below. I'll try to answer as best I can. Again, this was just trying to do a quick tutorial on how to play. I may go into a more in-depth tutorial with an opponent to kind of teach everyone how that's done. I also want to do a video on how to actually build a deck, so you know how to build a deck and what cards are great to put into a deck to get yourself going. Again, if you like this video, hit the like button. Please subscribe, and if you have questions, comment down below. I'd love to answer them. As always, thanks for joining me. Have a great day.